A parent's physical and mental well being plays a pivotal role in fostering an environment conducive to their child's growth. In the realm of parenting, it's not merely a supportive role, but a cornerstone for success, particularly when raising a child with special needs. Our guest today speaks from experience. She's the mother of a nonverbal autistic child. She knows how important it is for a parent to stay healthy to ensure neurodiverse children reach their full potential. This is the story of emotional healing for parents with Sara Intonato. Did I say that last name right?
You did. Thank you.
All right, good. I know we're friends almost of many years, going back to their alma mater, Boston University. So
Right.
this is wonderful that we get to do this like 20 years later. So
I love it. I'm so happy.
and congratulations on the new book. I truly love that this is being talked about, number one, and that people like yourself are putting it in the spotlight and also showing that a parent plays such a big role in this, right? In this idea of it. Talk me through kind of the process of what even led you to write this book.
It's sort of what I would call divine timing. During my time at Boston University in my second half there, I started getting really intense anxiety, and at the time 9/11 had just happened. We were
Right.
juniors. We were in a really rigorous program in School of Management. And I was just telling myself, everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And, fine isn't even a feeling really.
Mhm.
And I just didn't even recognize that I was feeling stress and anxiety in ways that I'd never had to deal with before. And went to the doctor. Thankfully, had a great doctor. I think I still went to my pediatrician at that time. And she said, I don't want to put you on any medication yet. Why don't we try some other things first? Tell me about your life at school. What are you doing? I said, well, I go to the gym. I do this, I do that. And I go to yoga class a couple times a week. And she said, well, Christmas break is coming up. How about you go to yoga like 3 or 4 days a week? And then why don't we touch base before your next semester and see where you're at? So I did. And it was the only time of day where my mind wasn't running at 1,000 miles an hour, worrying about something. I didn't know why it worked. I didn't know how it worked. I just knew that I felt different. My family started noticing things. My parents who'd never done yoga in their life started talking to each other and saying, I don't know what she's doing. Maybe it's I don't know, but she needs to keep doing it because it's helping her a lot. So they were very supportive. And a year and a half later, I was on a flight to India, taking my first trip there to study in an immersive way and in an authentic way. That was very important to me. I've always been a go to the source kind of person. And I thought it would be the thing that I did temporarily while my friends were applying to Wall Street and, law school. And I was going to do that too.
Yeah.
But I was going to just, do this for a little while first while I got some clarity. Then after about a year, I thought, I don't want to do this temporarily. I want to do this forever. So I started recognizing if yoga could heal me, it could heal anyone. And I started learning more about it. I started going to India repeatedly, teaching students in group and one-on-one settings, watching them heal, feeling more empowered. Like this is a tool that works. And then when I was about 30, I had a 2-year-old, 6-month-old, and my older child was just diagnosed with autism. And the only thing I knew how to do at that time was take care of myself. I'd been doing it now for almost a decade. So I didn't think I was doing anything special. I thought, I'd wake up in the morning and feel so overwhelmed with so many decisions to make for my child. I was always passionate about clean eating. So making sure his food quality was top notch, making sure he was getting the right therapies. I was making the right medical decisions. Wondering, of course, what is his future going to look like? Will he talk? Will he not? I don't know. My mind was just full of things. And yoga, again, was the only thing that made me feel markedly different. I would wake up in the morning and before I even took the blankets off, my brain would be running with all of those thoughts. And the only thing I knew how to do was go to my mat. And I'd seen it help me in my life before. I just had faith it would help me again. I hoped it would. And it did. And if you've ever done yoga or meditation, you know that it's wonderful to do it on the days where you wake up and you're full of energy and your body feels great and life is good, right? Like those are fun practices. So thankful for them. But what you really notice on the days when you wake up and you don't want to do it and you're tired and your brain is running at 1,000 miles an hour, your back hurts, but you feel different on the other side. of your practice, that's when you think, oh, this stuff really works. And
Oh, yeah.
so for me, it once again became my daily medicine. And for years, that's just what I did. I woke up, I did my practice, I came home, I faced the day of parenting, running my own business, being a wife and a mother in all capacities, and just taking it one day at a time. And it never occurred to me that I was doing anything special. I was just parenting the child in front of me, the children. I have 2 kids, and my daughter's neurotypical. And only about when my son was 9 or 10, we had been approached about making a documentary film about his journey. Again, didn't think we were doing anything special, just parenting the kid in front of us, always believing in him, always pushing boundaries, never settling for things, and just being those types of parents. I picked my head up and I started looking around at the population of parents of kids with autism and other needs. And I realized, oh, this group is not thriving. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
they need a lot of help, and everyone is throwing help at them for their kids. And no one's saying you need to hit the pause button and help yourself. And so when Rocco was 2 and he was diagnosed with autism, I looked for the book that was going to help me, the parent, thrive through this process. Didn't exist. When he was 10, 11, 12, I kept looking for that book. Surely by now, with all the self-publishing options, there's got to be something like that. Still didn't exist. So I thought, I'm just going to write this thing. And so that's how this book came to exist. It was just me both telling my story and also in each chapter providing tools that parents can use at home, even if they don't have a caregiver, even if their child is too young to go to school, taking the time to help themselves every single day. And that was really important to me. I didn't want to just spew the message of this is why you need to support yourself. I also wanted to say, and this is how you do it in a way that you can do it with your complex life. Because believe me, I know how complex their life is. And I've watched this population also be distrustful of experts. You know, they can listen to their therapist tell them it's really important that you care for yourself. Go take a walk, go meditate for 10 minutes. And they almost have a knee-jerk reaction of like, well, that's easy for you to say.
Yes.
You have a kid who talks, right?
Yeah.
Like you have a kid who can tell you when they're sick.
Yeah.
You know, you have a kid who can tell you if they're being mistreated at school. I don't have that. And so I had to really show them, I get your life and I'm simply evidence that you can do this too. So the book does both. It tells my story. It tells them why I was doing what I was doing to help myself and when, and then it shares with them how to do it on their own.
I think it's really important that your story gets out and it's not from, let's say, a doctor expert in autism. Because like you said, there's a lot of skepticism. I get it also. Patients come in here years and years, chronically ill. We see them and everything, but they're skeptical. What we say doesn't really matter. They want to hear from someone like them, almost like, give me someone my age group, my diagnosis, my everything, right? Or a mother who really gets it, who lives it, isn't sitting there and collecting money or like telling you this is the treatment for it, this is the way, right? That's really important. What I've noticed is the more people that you can connect and put yourself in those shoes and say, if they could do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
It's like breaking the 4-minute mile sort of thing. Like no one thought they could do it till someone did it and everyone did it, right? And then it was a bunch of people doing it. So seeing a parent that can do this, and I understand that. I understand. Listen, I'm not a parent, but I understand. It's very difficult to have children that they are completely responsible about you. Then you add in someone with special needs or anything, that's even more of a burden and something that's very difficult. But it is possible to do things like you're saying, to take care of yourself. And it's not only possible, it is necessary in some ways. Don't you feel that way? And when you were writing this book, what was there like a something coming out? I've never written a book. I'm trying to, but it's just really hard to get yourself to do that and write and be in that. What was the process there? I think you have a book in
you, CASPAR, and I'm going to help you get that book out.
Thank you. I think, again, you're like an example of like, hey, if she could do it, of course. Like I got the time. I can't say I don't have the time. But what was that process like for you? Was it a cathartic kind of process in itself of writing something that you kind of reviewed your whole life in a sense?
Yeah, it was at times really intense to relive some of the things I'd experienced. And at times it made me go back and think, wow, I never thanked that young 30-year-old mom enough for taking a stand for her own needs when everyone around her was telling her not to. It also made me keenly aware of the societal messages that parents receive and parents of kids with needs really receive, that just because they're normal are not good. For example, when your child is diagnosed with something, you as a parent are giving a to-do list a mile long. I talk about this in the book of like, now address this for your kid, now address that for your kid, now address this. Nowhere on that list is your own well-being. And so you have these parents who are trained or told to sort of become martyrs.
Yes.
Everything to their kid, nothing to you. And I've seen in my work now parents who subscribe to that theory to the detriment of their own health. I've seen parents who on the surface look like great parents. They're doing amazing things there for their kids. They're finding the right therapists and schools. And beneath the surface, their health is deteriorating fast. They have PTSD so intensely, they can't really get out of bed in the morning. They don't look at their emails. They have trouble corresponding and following up on things. They aren't looking at their finances sometimes. I've seen this with people on the outside who are kind-hearted people. I want to make that clear. There's no judgment here. I've been there. But they are still, what's the next thing for my kid? As their bodies are actually breaking down. And so I think I'm sort of waving the flag and saying, not only is it important for you to do this for yourself, it's actually necessary, because if you're not the bottleneck in your child's well-being now, you will become one eventually.
Yeah.
It's important to address that.
And that goes for any parent in any situation, really. Of course, it's more so pronounced when you have someone with a child that is autistic or special needs, but even with a child that has a chronic illness of some sort, just symptomology that continues, and you're trying to figure out what's the best way to do something. I've seen so many parents that have come through these doors, and they themselves sometimes are more of a problem than a solution, meaning they are confused about what to do. They're not being the proper role models in some ways and neglecting themselves, getting very stressed out, and their child's stressed out. They become almost hyperactive at stressful situations. Guess what the child does? Becomes hyperactive in situations. Listen, a child is like a sponge and an amazing mimicker. It sees a parent do something. My brother got angry. Suddenly my little nephew is the Hulk running around smashing things, right? So it's so important. But again, like you said, I hear it all the time. Like, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm a parent that's doing this and going to PTA meetings and running over here and running a company and doing everything. How do you start to reclaim that, even if you wanted to? And yes, I agree that many are like, I'm a martyr. I'm doing this all for my children. And you want to be like, well, you got to do something for yourself, for your children, right? But how do you start to reclaim that idea of empowering yourself and taking some time for the meditation, the yoga, the healthy habits?
I think the only way to leave your comfort zone is to leave your comfort zone. And I think the difference that you feel on the other side of doing something even small, like a 10-minute walk around the block in the sunshine, will be the thing that reinforces itself. I think if you're waiting for that divine moment of suddenly feeling like, now is my time, I'm worthy of taking this time, you're probably going to be waiting forever. I've met a mom recently whose child has a genetic disorder. She's the carrier. And she was so vulnerable and saying, I feel so guilty. I know I should meditate and take the walk and do the meal prep. I know how to do that. I do that for my kid. I feel so guilty taking that 20 minutes for myself when he's going to have this thing that he's dealing with for the rest of his life. That's my fault. She used the words, my fault. And that hit me really hard. You know, she really felt so unworthy of well-being in her life because she felt so responsible for her child. So when someone comes to me saying, I don't know how to care for myself, and we do a little digging, it's not that they don't know how to care for themselves. It's that they have been unwilling to feel worthy of that time and energy. So giving them supports around accountability so they can get through the discomfort of doing it, and maybe feeling moments of guilt that come up, maybe feeling fear or anxiety or shame around having not done it for so long, that's just as important as doing the things themselves, because that's what we're seeing with this population. They may not talk about it out loud, but their dirty little secret is feeling like they're not worthy of that time and energy. And we see this with parents of any kids, right? They're doing everything for the kid and nothing for themselves, even neurotypical kids. But to those parents, I would say, well, how will you know when you're worthy then? When is it enough? How will you know when it's enough? How do you actually measure that? Usually they can't measure it, because how do you measure enough? It looks different for everybody. So then giving them the push of, are you willing to just decide, I am worthy of being well today, and doing something to further that purpose? That's very often where the discomfort is for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did love the title because it's emotional healing for parents. You could have went with just healing for parents, and healing, a lot of people think, is more on the physical level, right? And a lot of people think that's it. Just get to the gym a little bit, eat a little cleaner, and that will be what I need to do to be a good parent that's showing they're healthy. But so much of it comes from the mental and emotional side, the psychological parts of it, right? And again, you're going to have a lot of different feelings when you have children that are going through this guilt, shame, regret, anything of that nature, fear. What are the kind of first steps that you're giving to then look at those aspects and improve on it? Because, it's easy to say, we need to reclaim your time to get some meditation down, to do this, to take a few minutes, go for that walk. Absolutely. And that will show in the emotional. But a lot of this is sometimes trauma that we need to address, something a little bit deeper from our childhood, maybe sometimes.
Right.
What are you doing with with parents of that to start to move the ball on the emotional level?
Well, for example, in the first chapter of the book, I give them a breathwork exercise that anyone can do, even a pregnant woman can do it, sitting down in your house, wherever you can, and doing that. It will take you 5 to 10 minutes. And then after that, I give them a journal prompt around, let's see what came up with that. Did you feel guilty during that? Some people feel so angry at their child's diagnosis, they can't sit still because they don't want to see the anger or the sadness that comes up. It's almost like they're afraid it's going to be old faithful. Once it starts to come up, it won't stop. And they think, well, how will I function? So giving them an outlet to move those emotions out in a way. And, some people are journalers, some are not. Some people want to do an audio clip, fine, just get it out. And that is the point. A lot of these parents are emotionally overwhelmed because they have all these low grade feelings of anxiety and overwhelm and stress beneath the surface. And going around and saying, I'm overwhelmed is easier than saying I'm sad. I felt blindsided. I'm hurting. I'm angry. And so giving them a place and a safe way to do that with things that are actually calming and healing for their nervous system on the other side, I believe, and I've seen in my own life, is the special sauce that they need.
How much of the healing within what you're teaching and going into is really on the level of the family, the level of the partnership, and the level of you being actually doing the work yourself?
I think you can't even begin to address the family and the partnership until you address yourself. Full stop.
It's got to start there.
Full stop. I think that we've seen that actually not work for families. Doing everything for the kids. They're going on the date nights. They're doing the things that people are telling them they're supposed to do to be good parents and good partners. And at the same time, they're feeling the stress and the overwhelm still. And so giving them the way to slow down and be with themselves. And I also want to say, for people who think the idea of slowing down is really scary, I give you physical things to do with your body. Like those of you like me who needed the workout too, I give you that, I promise. So, but giving them the chance to be with themselves. And one of the things I think is so powerful about yoga, meditation, breath work is you can't hide from yourself. Maybe you can hide your feelings of stress and anger from your partner, or you think you can, but you can't hide them from yourself when you're in silence on that yoga mat or breathing and being with your body. And it's a safe place to let those feelings and emotions move. And I, have a wonderful husband. We've been together since we were at Boston University, 20 years ago. And we've had different timelines on our healing journey. And he's been a great parent and a great partner. And he's only really starting to just uncover these things for himself. Can I say with 100% certainty, would our partnership be stronger if we both discovered these things right away? Probably. Yeah, I believe so. And at the same time, I don't judge him. I don't, scorn his journey. That's his journey. I can only control my journey. But I think that it's evidence for me to be able to say, taking care of yourself as an individual is priority number one.
Yeah. And I think a big part of taking care of yourself individually, also, and I'd love to hear your input on this because you coach and you do this thing with full potential method, which is great. And I think potential like leads into this idea of purpose, this idea of like having something bigger than yourself, or, I am totally on board with, I do this for my family. Like that's a big purpose in it. But do you feel like a lot of people need to find their own purpose beyond that sometimes? Something that takes them into this idea of like, releasing their full potential in that. Is that part of this like training in what you're doing?
Well, yes. And the word fulfillment comes up a lot for parents. I don't feel fulfilled in what I'm doing as a parent, as a partner. They're great. And something isn't feeling settled or like it's clicking. And as you heal your nervous system, those answers will find you. You'll feel comfortable sitting in silence so that those insights can find you. You're not going to find those insights when you're going at 1,000 miles an hour. You're not. You never get your aha moments when you're busy at the grocery store. You get them when you're walking outside for that 10-minute walk by yourself in silence. You get them in those moments, but you can only handle those moments of silence when your nervous system is available. And if your nervous system is offline because you're in fight, flight, freeze, you're not going to be available for those types of downloads and fulfillment. And I think also a lot of parents feel a lot of shame around admitting they don't feel fulfilled only by their children or their partnership. And I think there's, especially with moms, they feel like they should. Shouldn't being on the PTA be enough? Shouldn't being a great homemaker or a great working mom be enough? And they feel guilty admitting they want some type of dharma, divine purpose to relate to this. And I think that opening the door to healing yourself and quieting your mind is what gives you those answers. So we do see that come up a lot. Fulfillment is the word that almost everyone uses, which is kind of interesting too.
Yeah, it's something I truly believe is part of the healing journey of anyone, is to truly understand what is my purpose, place in this all, where are my passions, my hobbies, and really go after them and light that fire within you that so many people are missing and unfulfilled about.
That's right. Yeah, that's kind of how my book came to exist, because when Rocky was 2 and newly diagnosed, people told me, you have so many tools, you could go write a book. And I thought, no, that's not what I want. I'm supposed to be Sara, the yoga teacher forever. This is what I'm passionate about. I don't want any of that. This isn't what I signed up for. I remember saying that out loud. This isn't what I signed up for. The autism thing is not what I signed up for. And I had a lot of resistance to it. And whether I signed up for it or not on the 3D level, I obviously signed up for some type of soul contract with it, because here it is in my life. And so I had to make peace with that. My purpose is going to look very different than the purpose that was my purpose prior to this. And I had to do my own healing around acceptance, and at the same time accepting, but never subscribing to the commonalities or glass ceilings that are imposed upon families with autism that I saw all the time. I became really comfortable saying, that's not okay for me. I'm going to fight for more. I'm going to do this thing. And the only reason I could do that is because I had the energy. I was healed. I wasn't overwhelmed. But only after I felt like, okay, my son's in a really dialed in place. He's doing great. He's learning and communicating more and growing. I feel really centered and calm and strong. I've accepted my life. I love my life now. I feel fulfilled in it. Now I can write the book. And that was probably 8 years of me just focusing on my own healing, being a great parent. And, I'm a very spiritual person, and I really had to lean on those spiritual teachings of my son and I obviously have a soul contract together, and we're here to fulfill some purpose together on this planet. At the same time, I have my own lessons to learn. He has his own lessons to learn. I can't control his journey. He's 13, he's going to be an adult soon. He's going to find his own purpose in his own way too. And really seeing the beauty in that instead of fighting it or feeling bad about it or resenting that this wasn't the purpose that I thought I was going to have.
Yeah.
And the healing in that regard is really important. You meet a lot of wonderful families who are still kind of skirting the issue of denial or acceptance, or they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending a lot of time in their mind off in the future, wondering about what if my child never goes to college? What if they are unable to have a job? What if I never have grandchildren? They start letting their mind go into all these places, and that can seem consuming. If you don't have tools to bring yourself back to the now, you're never going to do everything you can today to achieve the best possible outcome in the future. And really, it just comes down to doing the best that you can today, every day, trusting that tomorrow you're going to face the things that you need to face tomorrow. But worry about that tomorrow. Today, just do it today. Yeah. And I'm very thankful that I had my spiritual teachings to lean on when I had all those big questions in my head too.
Yeah, I think this is where it's so important to have tools so you become resilient, because you will be thrown into these challenges. And like we were even talking before we started recording, at your child's school, the idea of the health class teaching them how to change a tire, because that's a stressful thing. And most people freak out and have panic attacks over that these days. No, you have the tools now to go at this in a calm, even way. And anything life throws your way in the future, you can use that as well. So those spiritual tools, sometimes people just think it's oh, that's really nice for you. But, how would I use that? All of us could use that. All of us could use, de-stressing techniques and everything else out there. And so many different things that you will find work for you.
Yeah.
So it's really important that way. I'd love to hear your experience, because I always love to hear all parents' experiences of how they navigated the medical world with doctors, professionals, everything like that. Because obviously you've been, you knew at 3 years old with Rocco that he had autism. I'm sure you went through different types of practitioners and everything, giving different diagnoses or looking at it differently. What was the experience like overall for you?
Well, I will say I probably had a healthy distrust of Western medicine long before that. And also an appreciation of it too. Right. An appreciation of it too. Had broken bones when I was a kid. So thankful there was a hospital for me to go to get those fixed. Right. Not knocking that at all. But I remember when I was in college and I was dealing with anxiety and I was having my tonsils out at 21 years old. And I was, dealing with seasonal allergies that no doctor could fix, thinking there's got to be a way to fix this. And I remember I knew I was fed up when I was at Boston University, went to this amazing allergist in Boston. And their solution to me was to leave my windows closed from March until November. And I was thinking, I have to leave the house, right? I have to open the door and go to class, and I have to get a job over the summer, and I have to go outside. Isn't it healthy to get fresh air? And something just felt so wrong to me. I didn't have any other solutions at the time. I just knew this doesn't feel right. And so I was spending some time in Long Island. My husband and I were dating for less than a year, and he had already graduated. So I would go visit him on the weekends and vice versa. And I was going to yoga studios around to take class when he was at work. And one of the studios had an acupuncturist there. And I had never had acupuncture before. And I remember telling the owner of this studio, the yoga teacher, what I was experiencing with my allergies. And if I went into a room with a cat, it was itching, eyes watering, couldn't wear makeup. I looked like a raccoon. It was so uncomfortable. I was literally crawling out of my own skin. And I thought, there's got to be something here. And so she said, book an acupuncture appointment on this day, because on this day, the acupuncturist teacher comes too, and they have an herbal clinic and they talk about herbs that might be able to help you too. So I booked the appointment. I went. First thing the guy said to me was, have you ever given up dairy? And I said, no. Does that do something? And because why did no doctor tell me to try that? Not even spoken about. Diet was never spoken about. And so I got an acupuncture treatment. They gave me herbal mixtures to help me with the allergy symptoms while we strengthened my immune system with acupuncture. They gave me some dietary changes to make. Cutting out dairy was one. I was a different person in probably 3 days.
Hmm.
And I remember my mom, who's a nurse. She was a nurse at Boston University too. You probably met her back in the day. Being so impressed that I was feeling better so quickly with holistic solutions. She was starting to get fed up on my behalf. Well, why didn't the allergist make this? Why does no one talk about this? So then that was the cascade of me going into yoga in a much richer way. I did my first cleanse at 22 and felt like a different person again, and started exploring what foods made me feel good, not feel good. 20 years later, still exploring that. So I had many years of exploring healing on my own in holistic communities before I became a parent. I had both my kids at home with a midwife. I'm so grateful I made that choice. I can't imagine where Rocco would be had his early months been full of unnecessary interventions and medications and whatnot. So again, going back and thanking my 28-year-old self for doing what I did. And I always looked at what's the right mix for my family of asking questions. I always just looked for practitioners who were going to listen to me, because I knew by that point, I knew a thing or two about healing and diet and how my body worked and how doctors didn't help me. And then grateful for the practitioners and the other doctors who did. And so I really looked for pediatrician specialists who listened to me. And ultimately, one of the doctors who I work with now and have for many years with Rocco is my favorite doctor, because he says, when a mom comes in here, and he only works with kids with needs, when a mom comes in here and says, something's not right with my kid, we do not stop until we find the thing that she's talking about. And sometimes you find it on day one. Sometimes it takes you 3 months to find it, but she's always right, because no one knows her kid better than mom. And he said, and I've seen too many doctors tell the mom she's crazy and send her home. And so for me, that was the most important thing. I wanted a doctor who I could communicate with, or a specialist of any kind who took me seriously, just like I take them seriously. And that for me was hugely important. And I'm really grateful to have found those people.
Oh, so important.
It's essential, right?
Yeah, I was watching this Netflix documentary the other day. I don't know if you've seen it, Take Care of Maya.
No. Oh, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, someone told me to watch. It was difficult to watch, as someone that knows like the medical side of it, and you see like it's a girl going through some rare kind of condition, and the parents are trying to figure it out and going to specialists. They don't know. They're told it's in her head. It's anxiety. She just has panic attacks, but this girl's in lots of pain and just struggling. And it ends up they go to like a ketamine specialist who puts her in like in a ketamine coma, and it's multiple days, but she has to go to the hospital, and the hospital says you're abusing her with the ketamine. They take her away. The mother commits suicide.
Heard this. Terrible.
Awful. But like you see just the letdown on so many levels, and you feel the pain of a parent just trying to do the best by their child. But to me, it was like, I could even understand some ketamine treatment for some very, very rare condition, everything, but why not try acupuncture first? Why not exhaust solutions that may not kill the child? Because it literally, the doctor's like, this may kill the child and change them forever. It's like, well, can we try like other things? And unfortunately, too many people, parents, everything, feel they've exhausted themselves, but the awareness is not there that there are hundreds of other solutions they could still try. And that's where I feel they really could have become empowered, but every doctor is like, nothing left. You have no solutions. This is it. And it's like, I just wanted to be like, reach out to the be like, there's so many things out there. And I think that's a really important message, like you're saying, is that continue to try, be very aware, do it on yourself too. Experience acupuncture, acupressure, chiropractic, like energy medicine, spiritual practices, yoga, meditate, and the list goes on and on. Experience those things so that if ever your child needs something, you can lean on some of those and go up the ladder, down the ladder, all around before you might make a drastic decision that forever changes everything into the future. So, it's really wonderful to hear parents such as you, your husband, that are trying so many different things, and then, able to navigate a little bit better when things go, wrong for a child.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are stressed about they're paying for health insurance. And if you're like me, health insurance doesn't cover the things you want to do or that you need to do more anyway. And the way I approach it is, one, have a great accountant, because medical write-offs are a thing and they will tell you.
Absolutely.
So keep track of that stuff. It helps you. Two, look at the money people invest in their house or their car. You live in this house 24 hours a day and you only get one. If your car breaks down, gets totaled, you can buy another one. You can't buy another one of these. So I never bat an eyelash at investing. Sometimes it's like, all right, this is a big thing. I better take this seriously. But I never bat an eyelash at investing in health and well-being, because it allows you to enjoy everything else so much more fully. And certainly with Rocco, I've seen him perform so much better in school. He's a very sensitive biome. And so I can immediately notice, if the sleep goes awry, I'm like, oh, maybe it's time to get blood work done or something. I can really see how investing in his health allows him to do things that people have told me were impossible. He goes to a typical school. He's in 8th grade there. He's in a special ed class, but he's an extrovert. He loves being around people. He is regulating himself. And that's not to say he never has a behavior, but when he has one, that's an indication to me that something isn't feeling right with him. And we look at what that could be. And I just imagine how uncomfortable he would be in his own body if he were eating foods that didn't serve him, that were making him break out and, have skin issues. And we saw that when he was little, as we started trying different things. So we could see with our own eyes how fast the healing response was when you found the right mix. And ditto with his supplements that he needs. None of it's arbitrary. It's all based on blood work and things that he needs. And I, to all the parents who are doing that already for their kids, bravo. And now go do it for yourself.
Yes. Apply what you're doing to your child to yourself, right? That should be a unified front, that our health together, not your health, my health, or anything. Our health is what really matters. And
one thing that is a commonality amongst parents of kids with needs that I didn't really notice until I started my consulting practice for them, almost every single one will say at some point, I worry about what's going to happen to my child when I'm not here anymore. And that's something I don't hear parents of neurotypical kids talk about. But every parent to a kid with autism who can't communicate clearly, I hear them talk about it. So what better way of caring for them than ensuring you're here and you're healthy and able to lead them and support them however they need as long as you possibly can. Doesn't it feel good to go to sleep every night knowing you're doing that with everything that you have, and you're going to be there for them as long as you can because of it, and be smart and set up the other things too for when you're not here. But you do that anyway for your neurotypical kid probably. So, or to some degree. So why not take impeccable care of yourself now so that they have you as long as they can have you?
Your longevity and vitality is the greatest gift you could probably give to a child, I think, right? To be able to be there and be able to, as long as possible. And it isn't the greatest gift to you. You get extra years with your child. Like, I don't know what would be more valuable than that. That's literally no price tag on that.
Yeah.
Sara, if there was one thing you would want readers of your book to take away, what would that be?
Don't read the book and then put it on the bookshelf. I want you to read the book and then go do one thing from the book every day. Keep it on your nightstand. Keep it next to your yoga mat. Use it as a guide manual for your self-care and your life every day. I already had a neighbor of mine say, I read it. And then when I saw the exercises, I didn't do them yet. And I was like, well, I live around the corner, so I'm going to get on you to do them. And she said, well, please do, because that's my goal for the winter months anyway. She was rushing to leave town for a conference that she's speaking at. But don't do that. And she and I had a loving, joking exchange about it. But don't do that. It's not just something to plow through. It's not a box to tick. Oh, I read that book. Yay. It's a guide manual to keep reading and keep looking at. And I know that you and I talked about Louise Hay as being an important person in our lives. And she was the first self-help book that I ever read in my life when I was 21. And I remember keeping her book on my nightstand. And often I would just open to a random page and see what message was there. And so often it was the message that I needed that day.
Absolutely. I
Book
love
can
that,
do
right?
that.
Go in with an intention, pick a book up and go to a page and see what it teaches you. And it's most
Yeah.
likely something you need to hear, right? For your greater good.
Yes. And this book can do that for parents too. What do
I
you
love
need?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because too many of us, like, just like you said, tick it off, next book, next book. And I've learned, like, my goal isn't to read a book a week, it's to absorb books and actually apply them, right? And slow it
Yeah.
down a little bit. Because
Yeah.
again, it's just, information. There's so much of it out there already. We don't need just more and more. We need to apply it too, to take it in, absorb it, and apply it. So I love that your message is there. Where can people learn more about you, your services, the new book?
You can come to my website, saraintonato.com. Everything is there. If you buy the book, everything is in here too. And there's a QR code you can scan to hop on a call with me.
Awesome.
Ask your questions. I'm here to help. And just remember that you don't have to go it alone. I think that you've been to enough places in the world to see different cultures that live in a village community with generations helping younger generations, and neighbors and relatives helping each other. And here in the States, everyone's so isolated and they have this Superman mentality or Superwoman mentality of like, do it all yourself, look good while you're doing it. Don't admit any weakness. Never ask for help. That's a sign of weakness. And I think certainly in parenting kids with autism, you realize that's not sustainable really quickly. So ask for help. I have a group for parents who are sick of being isolated and ready to change that. And I love meeting real people and reminding them you're not alone on this journey.
You're never alone. And, asking for support is one of the greatest things you can give to yourself and to the other person. You'll realize that people want to give support that gives them value and purpose. So it's a revolving door. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. Great to see you. And keep up the amazing work. I love everything you're doing, and it's really paying it forward. So thank you.
Right back at you. Thank you.
So remember to go check out Sara Intonato. That's SARAINTONATO.com. And check out the book, Emotional Healing for Parents for Children with Autism. Until next time, continue writing your own healing story.